I can't get out to the internet. Where are my files? I can't find my spreadsheet. My computer isn't working. If you spend any amount of time working with end users or in a support role, these are very familiar refrains. Solving problems is what a career in IT involves. And the first step to solving a problem is gathering information to find a solution. So that's what I'll cover in this module, gathering information with PowerShell. To start, I'm going to lay out for you a basic troubleshooting methodology that I use every day. It will help you lay the foundation for the rest of the modules and the topics we're going to cover. Then I'll dive in with both feet into gathering information with PowerShell. I'll be using a lot of the commands with the verb get dash, since that is the key verb for gathering information. I'll break down areas you should know that will give you skills you can start using right away. So let's get to talking about gathering information with PowerShell. Most troubleshooting is common sense. You have a problem, you need to find a solution. You'll find many different ways of describing a methodology, but they all break down into this simple form. First, we need to identify the issue. What's really happening? Vague issues like the server is slow or the internet is broken aren't really useful, but they are a common starting place. Narrowing down specific symptoms like error messages, affected systems and applications, or the time of day helps you to move to the next step of what's causing the symptom to occur. This step is often overlooked when IT professionals just jump right into the computer is slow to you should reboot or restart the application. While it's a common question, did you reboot your machine? It's not a good way to resolve the issue since you aren't finding the root cause of the issue. Finding the root cause of the symptom is the only way to actually resolve the issue permanently, and this requires digging in and spending some time on the issue. Once the actual root cause is found, I now figure out how to fix it. So no matter how minor that issue, I like to write up a quick action plan that I'll follow. This does a couple of things. First, I've documented what I plan to do so if I have to hand off the issue to someone else, they have something to go on. Second, if it does not work and I need to back out, I know the exact steps that were performed. Before implementing anything, I review my plan to make sure I'm addressing the root cause. For a minor software update to a complete system rebuild, I always at least write a quick plan to follow. Then I step back for a moment and I consider whether this plan will address the root cause and therefore resolve the symptom. If so, I implement the plan and verify that the symptom is gone. If it isn't, you may have to go back to the beginning, or perhaps you had a couple of plans so you can go back and try another. One quick note on applying solutions. Always apply one solution and evaluate. If you apply more than one fix at a time, like restarting a service, restarting your web browser, and then rebooting your machine to fix an internet application issue, you don't know which one resolved the issue. Stick with one, apply it, verify it, and document. And PowerShell can help us through all of these stages from gathering information to fixing issues. So in the demos today, I'm going to walk through a number of scenarios that fall into these categories as you see here: computer and hardware, networking, and files and folders. While this does not cover the entire spectrum of things that you can do within your environment, it does cover a great percentage of areas that you'll often run into, and it'll show you techniques that you can use in any of the other areas that you're looking into. So before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick reminder of the method that I'll be using throughout many of the demos. We've talked about this previously. For the demo, I'll most likely use get-command to find the command I'm looking for. Then I'll move to using help with the -examples parameter to see how to use the commands I'm working with. And when I want to pull a specific piece of information from an object, I'll use get-member to view the available properties I can pull from the output of the command. Most of the commands I'll be using involve the get dash verb. With get dash, you can find information about a lot of things: users, file folders, printers, local and remote computers, processes and services, network information, thousands of different pieces of information that can be used to help find a solution for issues. So, with that, I want to do a quick demo of finding your way in PowerShell. And this is just a demo walking again through the methodology of using get dash command, get dash help, and get dash member to find the commands that we're looking for a specific issue and using those to find the information we're looking for. Let's walk through a basic troubleshooting scenario. So let's say a user calls us up and they've just been given permissions to be able to remote connect into another computer on your network. And that has been set up using remote desktop or RDP. And they call in and they say they try to connect and they're not able to connect. So there's a number of things that could be wrong here. The policy could have got set up improperly. They don't have the right permissions, or the firewall on the remote system might not be set up properly. Any of those three could be areas that we could take a look at. So first thing I'm going to do is I want to take a look at, I think maybe the firewall could be the issue here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use get dash command, and I'm going to do a search based on querying just for the word fire to find commands that are related to that. So we see we get a huge list of commands. So I want to refine this down so that I'm just looking for the get dash, so the get verbs. So I'm going to change this so my query is get dash and then wildcarding fire there to see what I get. So now we get a more refined list with all the get dash commands for the net firewall commands that we have. Another way I could have done that is that I could have done a get dash net firewall with a wildcard at the end. Again, getting the same result here. Just different ways of going through that query process. So now that I have this list, I have a pretty good idea that the get dash net firewall rule is the command that I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in help to find out more information about the get dash net firewall rule. So we see we've got our syntax. It says it retrieves firewall rules from the target computer. So bingo, that's exactly what I want to use. So at this point, I do a couple of things. Chances are we'd run the command and we'd pipe that into get dash member because we want to see what are the properties that are available to work with. So we see we've got a number of properties that we can look at in here. Another way that I like to use as well is I like to simply run the command to see what happens, to see what the output is for us. So when we run this, and this is going to take a while to run because there are a lot of firewall rules on this system. So now that that's finished, in our list here, we see we have a number of different pieces of information that probably would be helpful for us depending on what the type of query is that we're looking for. So we know that we're looking for something dealing with remote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a get dash net firewall rule, put in for the dash name parameter, look for a name of a rule that includes the word remote. So notice that it brings back a number of rules here, number of remote desktop rules, and we see that we also have some remote tasks. So I want to further refine this down to looking for just remote desktop in the name. And so when we run that, we see that, okay, now we have some items here. And now I'm going to put this into a format dash table because that's going to give me a better view of how to look at this. So, okay, there we go. So we see we have 5 rules and we see, okay, in the 4th column, all of these are set to false. So, okay, the firewall is set to false for these. So remote desktop isn't allowed through the firewall. So at this point, we could let a senior person know, hey, they need to modify the firewall. Or if we had the ability to do that, we could actually do that with PowerShell. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we take the same command that we have, the get dash net firewall rule. And if we wanted to enable all of these rules, we could pipe that into the set dash net firewall rule, adding in the dash enabled of true parameter. So what it's going to do is it's going to take for each one of those rules, it's going to set each one of those rules so that enabled is set to true on there. Notice at the end, I've put in a dash what if. What that does is it actually doesn't run the command. It'll verify that the command is properly formatted and it will run it, air quotes. However, it will not actually perform the action. So if we see, it tells us what would it have actually done. So it tells us that it would actually have set the rules on those to whatever we wanted there. And if we go and we run that command again, what we'll see is we'll see that they're still set to false. So that's how you go through a basic troubleshooting methodology using PowerShell. When we're going through the process of gathering information about an operating system and the underlying hardware for that local remote system, we can use a number of different tools. The first tool we have is Windows Management Instrumentation, or WMI, which is an extension in a Windows OS. WMI was built by Microsoft to allow access to information contained within the operating system. It's based on the Common Information Model, an open standard that defines how managed elements in an IT environment are represented as a common set of objects, as well as the relationship between them. SIM was introduced in PowerShell version 3 to work with Windows Management Instrumentation. Prior to version 3 of PowerShell, you only had access via the WMI commandlets. Version 3 introduced us to the SIM commandlets. So generally, they provide us both the same information. So which you use depends on the version of PowerShell you're running. If you're running pre-version 3, such as Windows 7 or 2008 R2, you can continue using the legacy WMI commandlets. Otherwise, the SIM commandlets are the way to go, as the WMI commands are now legacy in the Microsoft world, and there's not any future development that's being done on them. So when we're accessing WMI information, we access the WMI repository. Within the repository, there are a number of namespaces. The SIMv2 is the namespace that contains the classes that we're looking for. The classes are the things like Win32 underscore processor that contain the information we're looking for, like device ID and name for our processors. This information is stored as properties that are accessible from the objects output by the command. So let's take a look at WMI and SIM in action and look how we use those to gather information about a local computer. In this demo, I'm going to be gathering information about a user's computer using WMI and SIM, so you can see how we can use PowerShell to start gathering information for troubleshooting an end system. So let's jump into our demo. In this demo, we're going to use PowerShell to access the performance counters that are on a system. So just like you would be able to do through the GUI using Performance Monitor, we can access those counters and the counter data using PowerShell. So first we want to figure out what the command is that we're actually using. So I'm going to put in get-command, and I'm going to look for the keyword counter, and you'll see it'll bring back a number of commands for me. I'm guessing get-counter is the one I want because the other ones are related more to storage and to databases. So we're going to do a help get-counter. And as we can see that this does get the information for real-time performance counter. So this is the commandlet we're looking for. At this point, I'm going to put in get-counter to simply see what this brings back for me. So when I run this, it's going to bring back 6 of the default counters that you would find in Performance Monitor. Some network, some processor, memory, and physical disk. So we see we have memories, percent committed, bytes in use here. That is an important counter. But let's say we want to get into some other memory counters. So let's dive deep into this. So I'm going to use my search method here. I'm going to do get-counter, and I'm going to access a parameter called list set. And I'm going to look for list sets that include memory. So what this does is this is going to bring back for me all of the counter sets where their names include memory in it. So you see here, I have one related to just memory, and that's the one that we're actually looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and do a get dash counter, and I'm going to call specifically the memory list set. And you see there, it brings back the memory list set, and you'll see underneath it has a counter and it has a list of all of the counters. Notice that it doesn't have every one of them because it's been truncated. So I want to see what all of the counters are that are available for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same command and I'm going to pipe it into select dash object, and I'm using a parameter called dash expand. And what dash expand is going to do is it's going to expand that counter so that I see all of the names of the counters that are in there. So you see, there we go. We have a big list of all of the counters that are available for us. So now I want to take a look at the percentage committed bytes in use and also the pages per second, because it's oftentimes a good idea to look to see if a system is paging out. So go ahead and type in my command. And there we go. So there we see the number of pages per second and the percentage of committed bytes in use for the memory. So that's a quick and easy way for you to be able to take a look at the performance counters on a Windows system.